Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome you at another MyQ webinar. This time, it's about the milestones of this year 2020 and the new version 8.1. Before we will start, I just would like to encourage you to ask any question you may possibly have through the live event Q&A. As you can see here on this slide, the Q&A is available under the little icon with a speech bubble with this question mark in it. If you have any question about any topic, please click on that icon and send us the question. At the end of this webinar, there will be a Q&A session when I will try to answer all the questions you will send there. In a case that something will not be answered, we'll definitely create a summary, which will then be posted into the training center with a recording of this webinar. So again, thank you very much for joining this webinar, and let us start. My name is Michal Deml. I'm a pre-sales manager and a trainer, and I will guide you through this webinar when we will shortly recap the most important highlights of the year 2020 and show the version 8.1, which is also the two main topics we have now as a part of this presentation. So first, starting with the short recap of the most important highlights, and then followed by the new version 8.1 and its main stuff, followed by the Q&A session, which was promised at the beginning of this webinar. Now let's quickly look at the recap. I will start with the MyQ X Licensing model, the new user session, new embedded terminals, followed by the automated deployment, multi-level project accounting, and new system health check, which are the important things which we have chosen from the list of features which were added throughout this year. Of course, there were much more features added, but these are just the important highlights we would like to recap today. Like I said, after this, we will go through the version 8.1, where there will be much more features we have to go through and show you what the new 8.1 brings. So, starting with the recap. The first most important highlight is the new licensing mode, which has been initiated and been released in this year. Let me just quickly recap what is new. Now, instead of Business Pro, Embedded, and other licenses, we now have three main license types: the Smart, the Enterprise, and the Ultimate. Starting first with the Smart, which is pretty much a replacement of installation which used only MyQ Business Pro, but it's a version which is intended for someone who starts with a MyQ or just needs only basic monitoring. The limitation of this version is it doesn't have any support. It only goes through community, but in a case you would like to start with MyQ, this would be the best point to go through. Next one is the Enterprise, the really important one, which is the main version of MyQ. It is actually equivalent of the MyQ Business Pro with the embedded terminal, which is now replaced by one license called Enterprise. So it covers everything which MyQ Smart brings, plus gives you the embedded terminal. When it comes to the license, it's the same like it was before. It's just one license per device with embedded terminal. And the same way as in Smart, when it comes to monitoring of the machines, meaning printers and machines without the embedded, unlimited number of devices is included. The last addition here is Ultimate. Ultimate is pretty much the Enterprise, but it's extended by the Smart workflows which is a tool which is provided by a third-party software called Scanner Vision. In a case you would be interested in this part because it does so many things which this version brings, like the zone recognition, the analysis of the documents, advanced OCR, and others. I would definitely recommend you to look at other webinars and other presentations we have available, because this one is for its own presentation. Again, like in the Enterprise, the license for this one is a license per device. There's also one really important highlight we have to mention. Now, in the past, if you would have wanted to use MyQ in the virtual machine high availability mode, you needed an extra license, and you needed it for each server in your system. Now, with the new licensing mode, with the Enterprise and Ultimate, the VMHA license is no longer needed because it's included as a part of these licenses. So once you will have the Enterprise or Ultimate license, the VMHA mode comes automatically, provided your server is a member of a domain. If it is, you can use that immediately. Another thing that came with the new licensing is the way to order the licensing using our portal and to easily update the license status at your customer. So you could buy the license through our portal and it automatically has been updated at the site of your customer, which brings a few really important things and also really simplifies everything related to licensing. The first important highlight is that you have only one license code. So you really do not have to use thousands of codes, some for support, some for embedded, some. No, that's just one key you will enter at the customer side, put it in the UI of the system, and then it's auto updated from our licensing server. So you don't have to care about adding additional keys for support and these kind of things. Another important highlight about that is that, like I said before, it's very fast and easy to update and manage all the stuff related to licenses because you just do it in the portal and everything is automatically sent to your customer. Another really important thing is that you also get an information about the expiration of the support license, information which was not available before. Now, if you use this, you can just go to the MyQ portal and see when the support of the project will expire. So if you've got a lot of customers, you just know which one of them might need additional support. Another important feature that has been added throughout this year is a new user session. A thing which gives us much more information about what the user does and also makes the whole process of login and logout much faster. But let me just explain that in details. Let me just start first with a recap of how the accounting worked before the new user session. The thing is, the accounting was done using the SNMP protocol. For those that are not technical, that means that every time the user logged out on a terminal, a special request was sent from the server, request which checked the counters of the machine and have done the accounting based on the differences before the session and after the actual user session, which was precise but has its also some limitations. To cover those limitations and give you much more details about what the user is doing, we've introduced the new user session. But before we go for that, there's just one more accounting we have to mention. On a selected machines, the embedded terminal was also able to do certain accounting through the device pool and offline login feature. This is just limited only for selected machines due to the architecture that has to allow that. If you would be interested in that feature, just contact us and we will explain that in much more details. Now, what's been changed? What the user session now means? Like I said, the standard accounting was done through the SNMP. Part of it was done by the embedded terminal, but only for selected machines. Now with 8.1, we've got let's say, a hybrid accounting. So we're using the old way and the new way as well. Now, if you've got the embedded 8.1 and higher, the accounting is done by the embedded terminal. So it's no longer done on the server, but the embedded terminal instead of that. What that brings is much more details when it comes to the user session. So we're able to determine the, I don't know, for example, pages per jobs and everything. So we've got much more details about the actual session. At the same time, it gives you more options when it comes to, for example, multi-session. So two users can be working on the machine at the same time. Meaning, for example, if someone is printing a very large print job, the other one can come there and just scan his file because the next user doesn't have to wait till the session is finished. And that way, multiple users can use the same machine and everything is a lot faster than it was before. At the same time, we still use the old accounting through the SNMP version 1, version 2, and version 3, which is used for machines that are using all the embedded terminals or machines when you are using only the direct printing. It's not about the machines with the embedded. We're talking about the small desktop units when there is no embedded at all. That might be a question. And that's what happens if I'm using a direct print on the embedded with the new version 8.1. In such a case, even the direct print is accounted through the new user session, and you've got much more details about that. So the main difference between the old and new is that when it comes to the new user session, you've got much more details. It's much faster switching between the statuses of the machine, and most important, you got the option of the multi-session. If it is an older terminal or machine that is not capable of using the embedded terminal, the accounting is done as it was before, and of course, you got less details about the actual session. Another highlight of this year are the embedded terminals, because we have added one embedded terminal and really improved another one. So let's quickly look at that. The first one was the Lexmark, a new embedded that's been added to our portfolio, and it's just a phase 1 at this moment, so it has maybe a little bit limited features, but allows you the full secure print. And there's just one thing, that after the login, only the Lexmark UI is used. On the other hand, within the next version, additional improvements will be shown, as we'll explain later. At the same time, we significantly improve the HP embedded, which is now much faster, does not use the sign-in screen, which was pretty annoying. It supports the job roaming, job properties, and you can use the device panel buttons. So once you're logged in, you get directly into the MyQ UI, and if you would like to get into the machine, you've got a device panel buttons. Another really important feature that's been brought, and this is related to the automated deployment and update of your fleet. What I'm talking about now are the special profiles which were created for the embedded terminals and their installation. So let's quickly recap of what this is about. Now the profiles for the embedded terminals are allowing you to do everything automatically. So you just set a profile and it will automatically affect all the machines in your fleet. So you don't really have to go machine by machine to install it. Let me just quickly show you what it does. So first, on the server, you have to set the profiles. Individual settings of the machine. You can apply filters based on which the machines will be identified, and that way the settings will be applied. You can put the machines into groups. So for example, A3 and A4 models will behave slightly different way. You can pre-install the drivers, and the last important, you have to upload the embedded package. Now, to this point, everything is pretty much same as it was before. But now comes the important part, and that's the part where the profile is going to be applied. Which means after you will initiate the process of the printer discovery, the system will do the following things. First, it will identify the devices in your network. It will automatically create the groups based on the filters you have applied. And more important, for those that are capable of using the embedded terminal, it will automatically push the installation and install the package on each of these devices automatically. And if you set it, it can automatically create the Windows printers, so that way you can just share them to your users so they can start printing immediately. And the most important part of that is that you can schedule this whole process. So if there's a rollout when you are deploying multiple machines, especially for the large-scale deployment, this could be really handy, because you will just send the profiles, send the discovery, which will be using these profiles, and then put it as a part of a scheduler. So that could be a scheduled task that will initiate this discovery and the profile every time it is set. So for example, every second hour. Which for you as an admin, it means it's much easier to deploy everything in the field, especially in a case of those, like I've mentioned before, large-scale deployments, because you will set those profiles let them run, and the system will just add all the machines, install the embedded terminals, apply all the settings, and then at the end of the day, you can just check if all machines were added, and the rest is done automatically. So like I said, it's very handy when it comes to the deployment. At the same time, it could be really handy when it comes to the fleet update. So if you're replacing all machines by new ones, you will again just set the task to initiate all this. And when a new machine is added, the system will automatically update it, apply auto settings, install the embedded terminal. The last thing how this can be used is an update of settings. So in a case that something is changed, for example, instead of simple authentication, you would like to enforce the two-factor one. That's why you will just change it in the profile, and the system will just do it based on the scheduled task and update your machines. Another important thing is about the multi-level project accounting, a thing that's been requested many times, and that way was also added into MyQ. When it comes to project accounting, let me quickly explain that. This is about additional cost centers the user has to select before the job is printed, copied, or scanned. In the past, we only had one list of projects, so there's been a lot of things. To make it much easier to find the exact one or to create an architecture like, for example, here, you can now create a multi-level project, which gives you much more options when it comes to the definition of the actual cost center. At the same time, few more changes were added, like the import process of those, so you can just import your projects with these details and this architecture into MyQ. Another addition was the option of no project. The no project option gives you a variety when it comes to the settings of who should be able to select the projects, or on the other hand, who should not be annoyed by it. Because through this, you can just set that the certain user doesn't have to select any project at all. And to make it all easier, there's also an option of automatic updates of rights for a newly created project. So if you're creating the project manually, you don't have to assign the rights. It's done automatically based on the settings you've applied. And the last thing I would like to highlight here is about the new system health check. It's a tool that checks the status of your system. I don't know if you've got enough space on your hard drive, if everything works as it should, if the database is in order. All these things were now just added into the one thing, one UI where you can see all the information about that. And in case something goes wrong, the system will automatically notify you about such a status. So if something happens in your system, you will know it instantly. And you can also check it in a special menu of MyQ. It's just a small icon in the top right corner of the admin UI, where you see all the highlights in a case something is not performing as you would expect. So you can just modify the settings and make sure it works properly. So those were the things which I just wanted to highlight, the milestones of the year 2020. Now let's look together at a new version of MyQ, which is the MyQ version 8.1, a version that brings new options to the field, and that way allowing you to do much more with the system. So again, what is in there? This time we're looking at the MyQ version 8.1, and I just would like to talk about the embedded Lite, the new quotas, new parser and a preview engine, the enhanced job policies, job roaming, event notification, and others. As you can see, there are many features we have to go through. So let's not waste the time and jump straight into it and go through all these features. Now, the first thing we would like to highlight is the performance improvement. Now, in version 8.0, we have introduced a new user session, but unfortunately, it has, as any other thing, suffered from a little childhood illnesses So in version 8.1, we've just taken all the stuff into the new level and improved it. So now it's much stronger and performs much better than the version 8.0. So that was just the first highlight I would like to mention here, that the 8.1 has much better performance when it comes to the user session and all the things. Another highlight, and this time I would like to talk about licenses. And there's been a lot of questions about the embedded Lite. The embedded Lite is a special feature that allows you to use some machines in a special mode, while at the same time you can also use the external hardware terminal in a case the machine is not supported. Now, for those who are, really familiar with the new licensing mode, you know that there is no Lite license available in the new price list. But that does not mean that this option would not be available within the server. Because if you would like to use the machine, you can. So let me just explain what the enterprise license means. For one enterprise license, like you already know, you will get one machine with the embedded terminal. In a case that it is a machine that supports the Lite mode, for one enterprise license, you can get also 2 Lites. Or the third option, you can get 2 machines with the external hardware terminal Pro. So for one enterprise, you get, just to recap it, either one machine with the embedded, or 2 machines with a Lite, or 2 machines with an external hardware terminal. Another new thing, which has been expected for some time and is now in version 8.1, is an improvement of the Quota. Quota is a tool that allows you to control the budget of the company, especially in these days where everything is about budget. We can just use a quota to control how much the user is printing and inform him in a case that he's printing a little bit too much. So what is new when it comes to the quota? The first thing, there is a new period you can set, a new period for which the quota is applied and after which it is automatically renewed. And that's a period of a day. In the past, that was not possible. We have also added new monitored values. So that's been the old ones like print and copy total, print and copy color, and much requested one, an option to use print and copy mono. Means that from now on you can set a quota per mono pages. You don't have to use only total one. You can use specifically a mono page quota for both print and copy. There's also the old one, which was for scan total and total cost. What we've also modified is the way the quota is set. So now the UI should be much easier to understand and that way much easier to set. So your customers will not have problems anymore with some settings and with some deceiving options. Everything should be much easier from now on. Another quite important feature is a new parser and one more feature which it brings, and that's the preview engine. Before we will jump into it, let me just quickly recap of what the parser is and what it does. Now, the parser is a special application that is part of MyQ, which is there to allow you to analyze the print jobs. Why you will need that? The reason is to be able to determine the price, for example, for quotas, projects, or credit, or in a case you would like to apply certain settings when it comes to scripting. In such a case, you might need a parser, because without being parsed, the job cannot, be set the way that you would predetermine the price that you will be able to apply the scripts effectively. So the parser is very important tool. So what has been changed in this version? Now the important thing is we have completely changed the way it works, and there is a new core that now really helps us to analyze the print jobs much faster than it was done before. At the same time, there is one more important highlight, and that before this version, That was a limitation that if the the print job, was larger than 2 gigabytes, the job was not really parsed because the previous engine we used simply was not able to do so. Now, with the new version 8.1 and with this new engine, this limit is no longer there. So you don't have to worry, even if you print some large presentations or large jobs, those jobs will be properly parsed and put into the queue. Of course, you have to take into account that if the job is really huge, it might take a few more seconds longer than the standard job to parse it. So that way, it will be just a little bit slower. But on the other hand, you will get all the information about a print job, and you will be able to apply all the policies and settings effectively. Now, with changing of the engine, there's also one new thing that is coming, and that is the option of a job preview. So for those of you who just wanted to have a job preview in the UI of the system, there's a really good message, because the job preview is now part of this new engine. So with a new parser, we also get a job preview, which is now integrated into the system. So you no longer need to use an external application to process it. At the same time, if you would like to use an external engine, don't worry, still you can use the external one as well. Now, when it comes to this, there's also one thing, and that is a job archiving. Now, I don't know how much you are familiar with job archiving, so let me just quickly recap of what this is about. It's a special feature that in some organization might be really helpful, because this is a tool that allows you to check, if someone is printing something he should not. Because if the job archiving is activated, the system automatically keeps copy of each scan or print in special folder together with some metadata about that file, like for example who has printed it on which machine and these kind of things. Now, to make this work, and especially to make this work for printing, you will need a job preview. Without a job preview, this was not possible. On the other hand, now you don't need an extra tool, extra license to be able to use job archiving, because like it is mentioned before, we've got now integrated preview engine which does that without a need of external license. There's just one important thing I have to notice, that archiving itself requires a special license. So the advantage is that now instead of 2 licenses, you will just need 1, and the price is much lower than it was before. Another feature brought with 8.1 is the thing related to job policies, because we've completely reworked the way you can apply the policies and added few more options. So as you can see, there are 2 menus, the old one and a new one. So let me just now explain what's changed. When it comes to the options, there are new job settings and new permissions for the user, which can then be applied on the embedded terminal. An important message for you is to be able to apply all this effectively, the embedded version 8.1 is required. Now, when it comes to the job settings, let me just quickly go through the changes. We've changed the description for the settings. So instead of default, it's now do not change in a case you don't want to apply any setting. Another thing is that the force black and white option has now been changed into color, and you can just determine if you would like to have it in black and white or in a gray, or in a color. We've also added new options for devices that are supporting it. So that could be an option to use punching, stapling, and when it comes to the permissions, there's an option to change color, change duplex, change staple, change toner saving, and change number of copies. So that way you've got much more options you can set there. Now, there's also one more thing which's been added here to the default policy for the user, and that's the keep jobs for reprint. This is a feature which previously was part of the printing queue. It's a feature that allows you to set that the job will be or will not be available for reprint on the machine. So that way, in a case the user is printing something confidential, if this option is deactivated, the job will be automatically deleted once it's released on the machine. So that will be just information about number of pages. The actual job will then not exist anymore. Another really important highlight is about the job roaming. Job roaming is a feature used by the multi-server installation. So in a case you've got multiple servers connected together, for example, each represents one branch of the company, the job roaming is an option that allows you to print jobs from distant sites. So if you are traveling among sites, you can then pick the jobs on the one where you currently work in. So what's new here? There are a few changes. The first and the most important one is that you can now define how this will work. The way it worked before was that if you wanted to print a distant job that is actually spooled on the different site than you are now, you had to go through the option My Jobs, which is an icon of the embedded screen, select the job roaming tab, and download the job to the local server. Now, with version 8.1, you've got additional options. You've got an option of a separate list, which means that it works the way it was before. So to get to the distant jobs, you have to go to the My Jobs job roaming tab and download them. While there's also a new option that it can be part of a shared list. So that way, all the jobs will be displayed together with the local jobs in one menu. So if you go to the My Jobs, you will not have to click on a job roaming tab, but you will have all the jobs listed as one menu. And most important highlight of this version also is that you can include the remote jobs as a part of the print all option. So if you've got a strong network connection between or among the sites, you can just make this part of a print all. So that way the user doesn't even have to go to My Jobs, doesn't have to go to some special tab or look for anything. He will just go to the embedded terminal and hit the print all button, which will automatically release all the jobs in the queue, and it would not matter if those jobs are local or coming from a distant site. When it comes to this option, of course, a strong network connection must be ensured, and it's recommended to use it for maximum 10 servers, because of course, if you should communicate with many servers, that could be some delay. Another option, another thing which has been changed, and that's the event notification. An event notification is a feature that gives you some status update about the machines. So in a case of the machine needs a service, you need to check the supplies, there's a paper jam, there's not enough toner, the system will notify you about such a status. Now, what's new in this version? The most important thing is we are no longer using the code of a service module. Now, this feature was part of the service module, which is a feature which has never been used for all the markets and is now completely discontinued, replaced by these new event notifications. Now, when it comes to this, you don't have to worry. You are not using, you are not losing any options. There are all the notifications you are used to. So in a case you need to know what's happening in the customer's fleet, you still get all these things. So in a case that, for example, the paper jam is not resolved within 1 minute, the local admin will be notified. In a case the machine is broken, you get a notification to your email box because you're the partner who cares about those machines. All these things and all these notifications you are used to, like I said, are still there. So when it comes to that, nothing changes. On the other hand, we've completely reworked the core that works behind this, which gives us the option to add additional features, additional settings in the future updates. Another thing that's been added to MyQ 8.1 is the Q data detection, an option through which we can get additional information about the print job, its name, or the place from where it is coming. Let me just quickly explain, because this one is rather technical. Now, when we are receiving the jobs, there are a few mechanisms through which we are getting the information about the actual print job. Now, with version 8.1, there are new options for the name detection and for the detection of the place from which it is coming. So the detection is based on the PGL. Sorry for those who do not understand, it might be too technical. The important message is that all this gives us much more options to get the details about the name of the job or the place from which it is coming, because now we can combine multiple PGL commands, and we can also use a regular expression to just extract the part of the string which has been found and put it in there. So that way we can get, like I said, more information about the name of the actual print job or the place from which it is coming. The next feature I would like to talk about is related to one special embedded terminal, and that's an embedded terminal for the HP machines. Now, what is new is, as you can see here from the title, the so-called exploded mode is now back into the build. So let me just explain what the exploded mode is, because this is something which is available only on this embedded terminal. The exploded mode is a feature that allows you to use a native environment of the machine, so all the models you are using in your fleet will share the same screen, even if they would not be able to use the full MyQ screen. So it's using the native environment of HP, and that way the HP icons. Now, this one was not available in version 8.0, and based on many requests from the field, we have decided to edit it back as part of version 8.1. For those who are technical, when it comes to the setup of this can be done through the HP Manager, which is also explained in the training videos of MyQ. Another addition, it's about a printing, and especially printing from your Chromebooks. So if you've got an environment when the Chromebooks are present, from now on we can use a direct printing to MyQ, provided you are using managed Chromebook. So if you've got a fleet with managed Chromebooks, you can just print directly to the MyQ server using the IPPS. Another thing, it's quite a minor one, but if you are a technician, you will see that this one is quite handy, because this is about the management of the whole system, about update, and about the giving access to distant locations. Because in the easy config, we have added one more really important thing, and that's the option to add account for the service run. So you pretty much define under which account your services of MyQ should be running. So especially when you are doing the update, or in a case that you would like to define rights for the connection to certain folder or some distant location, you can do it through an account which you will define here. The system also automatically runs under that account, because the default setting is a local system account, which might not be really the best option for all the installations. So that way, we encourage you to change it to some system account which will be used especially for MyQ. And another minor thing, which is about the management of pins. Importantly is that we have completely reworked the way the pins are updated. So there's a new way to generate them, In a case that you are defining a new length of the pen, the system will automatically change it for all the users that do not have that length. That's pretty handy, especially in a case that the number of users is increasing. Now, there's been some security mechanism before, and that was that in a case you had too many users, the system didn't allow you to use a shorter pin. The limitation was that this was not applied for all users. And that way it was not really that secure because someone can potentially guess somebody else's pin. Now with version 8.1, once this will happen, the system will allow you to automatically update the pins of all users, with one more thing, that it will no longer allow you to set a pin shorter than the value which is set there, which also means that you will not be able, even as an admin, you won't be able to provide a shorter pin. Another thing which has been added is a feature related to multi-server installation, and that's the central server. Now, previously, the server that managed the whole installation was called the master, but we've decided to change it from master to central. Now, this is like a first step towards the new set of features that will change the behavior of the whole system, where everything will be just managed from one central point. So like I said, this is a first step, which then in the future versions will be extended by many features, through which it will be much easier to manage the whole multi-server installation. And one of the last things I would like to mention is also related to the central server, and that is an integration of the BI tools. Now, when it comes to the reporting, and if we are talking about a standalone or the side server of the multi-server installation, you just get the MyQ reporting engine, where you can pick from multiple topics, multiple different templates on which you can build your own reports. The same thing is, of course, available on the central server, with a difference that you can, get the data from for the whole system. Based on the request, we've also added one more tool, and that's the option to connect an external BI tool to the system. Now, our database has been modified to allow you that connection, and that way to store a data to some external table to which you can connect your external BI tool, like for example Power BI, and create your own reports in a case that the default ones are not enough. So you can create your reports with own graphics using an external BI tool. We have also prepared some very basic templates through which you can connect to our database and get the data to your Power BI instantly. So that's pretty much the summary of all the features. And now we've got a few more minutes for the QA session. So in a case you've got some questions, please do not hesitate. And as I've mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, there's a little icon of a speech bubble with a question mark. If you click on that, you can just then ask a question. So if you've got some, send it please here, and I will just try to answer as much as I can. If